Tonight's episode of Legacy Battle is brought to you by Atlas Benefits.
Atlas Benefits has solutions for your insurance needs. Atlas Benefits can help you obtain Medicare, health, or life insurance and employee benefits. You can find them on the web at www.atlasbenefits.com.
Or you can contact Rob Ducey or Roy Smith at 727-600-2892 and mention Legacy Battle Podcast. Atlas Benefits has all the solutions for your insurance needs. Enjoy the show. This is Legacy Battle. You can view us on YouTube, Facebook, iHeartRadio, Spotify. If you want to sponsor us, hit us up in that comments section. Michael Adams here, creator of Legacy Battle. Joining me tonight, Gridiron Battle Zone's own Brian King. From Steelers Nation South, Rollo Coffin. Ball State athlete, Paul Havicott. Our special guest tonight is the son of the late, great Bengals cornerback, Ken Riley, who we're going to be discussing tonight because tonight's show is the top 5 Cincinnati Bengals of all time. So Ken Riley definitely deserves to be on this list. But Ken Jr. is also a Bengals super fan, keeps up with the team. So he's going to give us his input on all our players tonight. So thank you for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me. I look forward to it.
Awesome. We appreciate it. So let's jump into this debate. We're going to start out with Boomer Esiason.
All right, Norman Julius Esiason. Wait, what? Boomer. Everybody knows him as Boomer, nicknamed by his mother because of all the kicking he did in the womb, actually. I did not know that. But it feels to a lot of people probably that he's been an analyst forever, and that's actually probably true. He's been an analyst almost longer than he's played professional football. But I definitely think he's a face of a Bengals top 5 or franchise. I mean, this is a great Bengal, but he's actually not a Hall of Fame quarterback. He played 14 seasons in the NFL, mostly with the Bengals, but he did spend 3 seasons, 2 with the Jets and 1 with Arizona. His most successful season in Cincinnati was 88, winning MVP and leading the team to the Super Bowl number 23. They did lose by 4 points to the 49ers. It was a very close game, and that's unfortunately part of Bengals history right there. I don't know that they've been close many times, but he was a good chance for them, but they came up a little bit short. Unfortunately for the Bengals, he's their last quarterback to win a playoff game, doing so in the 90 season, and he's definitely somebody I think of immediately when I think of Bengal greats. Some of his stats are actually really respectable. I mean, I don't know what people are going to say in terms of the Hall of Fame, whether he's borderline or, there's so many other great quarterbacks, but he's 9th in league history for passing yards at 37,920, 10th in passing TDs at 247. He threw 184 picks. He had 5,205 pass attempts and 2,969 completions for a percentage of 57%. Boomer's been to 4 Pro Bowls. He was a Walter Payton Man of the Year Award in 95 for his charitable work. He did and does a lot of charitable work. He's a great guy, it seems like. He's the only quarterback to hold a franchise record in a single game passing yards. It's a solid quarterback, but definitely has a little bit of a ways to catch up to some of the premier quarterbacks we're seeing nowadays. Some of his notables. Boomer was still actually going strong in the later years of his football career. And after being released by the Jets, he signed with the Cardinals as a free agent in 96. It was during this season, on the 10th of November, he threw for the 4th best passing yardage day in NFL history with 522 yards in a 37-34 overtime victory against the Washington football team. 2 weeks later, he led a fourth quarter comeback against the playoff-bound Eagles. And I bring this up because he ends up rejoining the Bengals in 97, takes over for Jeff Blake mid-season, midpoint, and actually is excelling. He throws for 13 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions. He achieves a passer rating of 106 for the rest of the season. Bengals were 3-8 with Blake under center. And then with Esiason coming on, they won 4 of their last 5 games, scored 30 points 4 times, and then twice they broke 40 points. The Bengals actually requested him to come back for 2 more seasons after that last season, but he ends up and goes ahead and retires. But I still think he had some left in the tank. But I'll end it with this. I love the last play of his career. 79-yard TD pass, play action pass to receiver Darnay Scott for a 16-14 victory over the Baltimore Ravens. You got to think of Boomer when you think of the Bengals, and I think he's a top 5 Bengal.
He's definitely a player that you think of, Cincinnati Bengals. But, Ken, do you feel that maybe his notoriety is bigger because he is an analyst and everybody sees him everywhere, and that kind of makes him more well-known?
That could be a possibility. Bengals has always been like a smaller market. I must admit, I'm a little biased because, like I said, my father played from '69 to '83. So the quarterback that I grew up watching and loved was Ken Anderson. So that would be my, my top choice, honestly, as far as quarterbacks history. That just because of, like I said, those were the era that my father played with. But to answer your question, I believe that may play a part in it, his notoriety, because he is still in the public's eye as a commentator. So,
Rollo, you're from Steelers Nation South. What are your thoughts on Boomer, seeing as you played him twice a year for many years?
Boomer was a gunslinger. He was one of the first gunslingers that I appreciated growing up as a kid and just watching them against the Steelers. I mean, he could deal it. I mean, he could throw that ball, especially as a left-handed quarterback. I mean, it was a pretty thing, to watch him throw and get the ball out.
Very good quarterback.
One thing I want to add real quick is that Boomer was one of the first guys to run like the hurry-up offense. I mean, there was Jim Kelly was really like a pioneer for it, but the Bengals were right along there with him, like not very long afterwards. And when he would get going and get hot, I mean, he was one of the best in the league for sure. And we saw in '88 when he won the MVP.
Ryan, you think he should be in the Hall of Fame?
I don't know. I mean, because it seemed like his window of greatness was kind of smaller than a lot of the other quarterbacks that are in that conversation. But like I said, when there was a small short period of time there where he was as good as anybody.
If he had gotten the ring, he would have been in. If he'd
Maybe you're right.
That hurts. Yeah, that hurts for sure. Yeah.
But let's move on to the other quarterback we're discussing tonight, Kenny Anderson.
Kenny Anderson, he's another one of those snubs for Hall of Fame. I think if he had a ring, he would be in the Hall, because when he retired, he was 5th all time in passing yards. So he was the MVP. So he had the numbers when he retired to be a Hall of Fame candidate. But some of the things about him, he's still top 50 all time in passing yards. Like I said, when he retired, he was 5th all time in passing yards. The Bengals have had 12 winning seasons all time. He had 3 of them. 10 plus win seasons. He had 3 of them. They've had 16 winning seasons. 97 above. He has 7 of them. So he was a winner during his time there. Now, so he took them to a Super Bowl. And he's also playing during the Steel Curtain, Miami Dolphins, Oakland Raiders era when they were going to all the Super Bowls. He's one of only 10 players all time over 70% completion percentage. And when he had the record, it stood for 27 years until the unflappable Drew Brees broke that record. Little known fact that I found out that he's still 16th all time in rushing in Bengals history. So not only could he swing it, he was also an underrated runner. Be able to tuck and run. And he didn't run a lot, but when he did, he was very effective. He's got a higher rushing average than Cam Newton, John Elway, names that are are synonymous with mobile quarterbacks. So that was one of the underrated things that about him that I found out as part of his game. Like I said, he was MVP. He actually had three touchdowns in that Super Bowl. So, if it wasn't for that big goal line stand, the Bengals, probably have their first championship. But he played very well. He did throw 2 interceptions, but he threw for 2, ran for 1, over 300 yards in that Super Bowl. So he played very well in that Super Bowl. That's why he's my all-time top 5 Bengal. Like I said, he should be in the Hall. If he had that ring, he's got the numbers, he's got the accolades. That ring would definitely put him in the Hall.
Ken, tell us your thoughts on Anderson. What's your impressions of him?
He just hit it on the head there. There's without a doubt in my mind, if they would have won the Super Bowl in 1981, it would have been a couple more Cincinnati Bengals in the Hall of Fame right now, and he would definitely be one of them. And I still, right now, think he's deserving of it. To say he's MVP, you look at his numbers for compared to a lot of the current Pro Football Hall of Fame quarterbacks. His numbers are right up there. Like I said, I think that not winning that Super Bowl, because as a quarterback, that's what they, hold a lot of weight on that, winning that ring. But as far as him shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, he's definitely should be in there. Like I said, I watched him pretty much all growing up throughout his career, and seeing him, him and my dad were good friends, and I definitely think he should be in the Hall of Fame, and hopefully he'll eventually get in there.
Brian, he was a bit of a scrambling quarterback before that was popular like it is now.
Yeah, he could scramble. He could throw it. He was an all-around quarterback, and like I said, his numbers speak for himself. And he was in the era when they were playing against the steel curtain. So it was a tough division, and the Bengals held their own actually a lot during those years. So he definitely was playing against some tough defenses, and the rule changes, and a lot of the rule changes how they are now, where you can't even touch a quarterback. So it was a tough era.
Yeah, they during that steel curtain, Oakland Raiders, Miami Dolphins era, he still put up six winning seasons.
That's right.
So that's a tough thing to do in that era.
That says a lot. It sure is.
Yeah, something to add is that, for his time, if you look at like 1970s, 80s stats, it's hard to compare them to now. But if you compare to the other, his contemporaries, he was a very, very efficient quarterback. He didn't, his completion percentage was really high. He didn't make a lot of mistakes either. He didn't cost his team many games at all, that was something that you really looked at, because there was a lot of guys back in that era that would make the big mistakes and they would cost their team. But Kenny Anderson really wasn't one of them.
Well, he was the beginning of the West Coast offense with Steve Walsh. They just took off, and Steve Walsh really, said some nice things about him. So he started that West Coast offense.
Bill Walsh. But yeah, I know.
I'm not Bill. Bill Walsh.
Right.
Bill Walsh.
Well, let's move on to Anthony Munoz, one of the greatest offensive linemen, not just he's the greatest offensive lineman, period, in Bengals history, but he's one of the greatest in NFL history. So drafted, pick number 3 overall in the 1980 draft, spent his entire 13-year career with the Bengals. I know he did go down to Tampa to try for a 14th season, and he got cut. He was very beat up by that point, his body and stuff. But he's the only Hall of Famer we're discussing tonight. Went into the Hall in 1998. His stats, they speak for themselves. 11 Pro Bowls, 9 first-team All-Pros, 2 second-team All-Pros. He's on the NFL 100th anniversary team. And he's played in both Cincinnati Bengals Super Bowls. There's not too many people that can claim that, so that's something special that he has. He was Offensive Lineman of the Year 2 times. He was voted 4 times Offensive Lineman of the Year by the Players Association, also 4 times by the Alumni Association. He set the Bengals record for Pro Bowls. On the NFL Network's top 100 players, he's number 12, and that's the highest offensive lineman in that ranking. He's a member of the inaugural Ring of Honor for the Cincinnati Bengals in 2021. Went into the Ring of Honor there. First Bengals player, as I said, to go into the Hall of Fame. And, you know, he's very big in the Cincinnati community. He stayed there after his retirement. He's got the Munoz Foundation. They've helped over 40,000 kids in the Cincinnati area, you know, who are struggling. And he's accessible, and he's involved, and he's an advocate, and he's very, very popular in the Cincinnati area still to this day. And he's been retired for over 20 years, so 25 years probably. Man, that's been a long time. But I don't see how anybody can make an argument that he's not going to belong in the top 5. Ken, you know, Munoz, maybe the greatest of all time, you think?
Mr. Bingo, like I say, he's the only Cincinnati Bengal that, you know, played majority of his career in Cincinnati that's in the Hall of Fame. So all that you mentioned and more, very nice guy, professional. Every time I've met him, he's always been nice to me and my family. And what can I say? You know, like I said, he's that consummate professional, great guy, and the numbers speak for himself. You know, he's pretty much on every list that you can imagine, every Hall of Fame. So yeah, I would say he's every list. He's always, you know, number 1 as far as Cincinnati, 1 or 2 at the least too. So definitely.
I think he's in that was it Mirabella beer commercial? Is that the one I'm thinking of? He does one of those beer commercials. I can think of the theme song in my background, but I can't think of the name of the beer. All right, let's move on to our first wide receiver tonight, AJ Green.
AJ Green, all right. 6'4", 210 pounds, wide receiver. He had above average arm length, 34 3/8 inches. The NFL average about 32. 4.5 40, pretty darn good speed. So Green, he was the SEC Freshman of the Year at Georgia in 2008, and he had a great career in Georgia. He was all SEC in 2008, 2009, 2010, All American 2009 and 2010. So the Bengals saw fit to draft him 4th overall in the 2011 draft, and he ended up playing 10 seasons with the Bengals, and he made 7 consecutive Pro Bowls. So very, very consistent right off the bat. He was very productive, 6 1,000-yard seasons. And in 2016, he missed 6 games, but he still had 964 yards, so almost a 7th 1,000-yard season. He topped 10 TDs 3 different seasons. Very impressive there, too. You talk about the NFL top 100 list. You know, they do that season by season. Well, this guy's been on it almost every year of his career. In 2012, he was 77th. 2013, he was 16th. 2014, he was 9th. 2015, he was 37th. 2016, he was 16th. 2017, he was 17th. 2018, he was 22nd. And 2019, he was 58th. So, I mean, 3 or 4 of those seasons, he was considered a top 20 player league-wide, regardless of position. So very, very impressive. One of the big moments in his career kind of gets forgotten because of the result of the game, but in 2016, that crazy wild card game between the Bengals and the Steelers, he caught what should have been the game-winning touchdown in that game with less than 2 minutes to go. And then, you know, we all know how things unfolded. You know, Pac-Man Jones, perfect. They lost their cool and the penalties, and they ended up losing the game. But, man, A.J. Green made a clutch catch there to put his team in a position to win in the postseason. So that was a great moment for him. He's number 2 on the Bengals franchise all-time list in receiving yards, receiving touchdowns, and he's number 1 in yards per game with 74.3. So very impressive there. And recently he was signed with the Cardinals, but for 10 years he gave Cincinnati some high-quality play at wide receiver.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you know anything about, like, what the vibe is now in Cincinnati on AJ Green since he left, and I know it wasn't under the greatest circumstances.
No, it wasn't, but I mean, it's part of the business. But I know that the Houda Nation, they got love for him. He was a true professional. He was definitely a number one wide receiver. Like you say, he did it for 10 years. And he was that guy for those years. Unfortunately, he got hurt, but sometimes it's just part of the business that and especially in today's game where a lot of the greats don't have the opportunity to finish their career with one team. So no, I think that the fans they still have love for AJ and understand the business side of it. And now that they have Chase, that would kind of ease that transition. So, like I said, I think that the fans, like I said, they still have love for him.
Okay, Paul, you think AJ is going to be a fantasy lover's dream once again this year, or is maybe that injury taking away from him too much?
Injury and age, I don't think he'll be as effective as he once was. He's to me synonymous with like a Megatron, not in stature and size, but you gotta wonder if they had both been with a premier quarterback, what kind of numbers they would have put up. And I just unfortunately think he was wasted, and with his time in Cincinnati. I don't think he can put up what he used to just because nobody beats Father Time.
Right. All right, let's move on to our next wide receiver. It's going to be Chad Johnson.
Ocho Cinco. What can I say about Ocho Cinco? He was a fun guy on the field, like from his celebrations. Whenever he scored, whenever I watched the games, I was like, what is Chad going to do next? I remember he proposed to the young lady, the cheerleader on the sideline, where he played golf with the pylon, or when he took over the camera from the on-field camera guy. You just never knew what you were going to get out of Chad when he scored a touchdown. But you did know what you were going to get out of him every Sunday. He was one of the best route runners in the history of the NFL. Darrelle Revis recently just said the same thing, that he never matched up with him in his prime, but from watching tape and watching film, Chad Johnson is the best route runner of all time. Went to 5 straight Pro Bowls in the early part of the decade. I mean, he was a matchup nightmare. He's still the all-time leader in receptions, yards, touchdowns in Cincinnati Bengals history. And a lot of those seasons, a lot of his early seasons, he was playing with John Kitna and Keely Smith, those names. So, he got Carson Palmer a little bit, and that's when his game was elevated a little more, when he started getting 1,300 seasons, 1,400-yard seasons. But, like I said, he was a matchup nightmare. And I hated when he played the Steelers because he used to torch the Steelers. So, he was fun. He was a really fun player to watch. And like I said, that's why I believe that he's needs to be in the top 5 Bengals of all time. With the two back-to-back Pro Bowls, and he did it on teams that weren't very good. He only had 2 winning seasons while he was one of the premier receivers in the league. So he did it in I think if he wasn't so flashy, he would have put up those numbers and then me. So Chad Johnson, top 5.
And he was on Dancing with the Stars. I can't tell you how many people we've talked about on the show that have been on Dancing with the Stars. Kevin was here. He'd be calling that out. But, Ken, what are your thoughts there on Ocho Cinco? He's very flashy, that's for sure.
He was the definition of an entertainer. He brought entertainment to it, but it was always in fun. He's a Florida guy. I'm from Florida, so Florida guys, they love to talk. I remember this when my dad was up there for one of the events that they had, and it was my dad and Chris Collinsworth, and Chad came up, and he was talking like, "You want some?" I would have did the same thing to you. So he was always talking, but it was always a fun spirit, and he was able to go out there and produce as well. So that even made it better. Really loved this game. Like I said, some of the quickest feet, one of the best route runners, and he just brought that fun and entertainment to the game.
I can't remember the clip. I can't remember the DB that he was talking to, when he walked out of the huddle and onto the play, and he told the DB what he was going to do, and he did it. He caught the pass.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing real quick about Ocho is like, I mean, some of these other guys, you know, T.O. and some others, you know, A.B. would, you know, they had like that diva sort of attitude, and it would be detrimental to the team. But in my opinion, I think like Ocho, he would have that sort of thing. He sort of had that thing too, but it was never, you know, detrimental to his team. It would never like hurt his team or anything. You know, it seemed like it energized him, and that kind of had the opposite effect.
He was part of the group that started the Who Day, right?
Oh no, that goes way back.
That goes way back.
That goes back to the Who Day beer.
Okay, gotcha.
All right.
Let's move on to our final offensive player of the night. That's going to be TJ Houshmanzada.
You gotta love the name Houshmanzada. If you're playing an earlier version of Madden, he's on there as Houshmans. The game used to limit to 12 characters. They ended up having to change that, and then Madden NFL 2010, they finally put his full name on there. People, for the most part, seem to have trouble with this name, but it all actually became crystal clear in about 2006 when Chad Johnson introduced him on ESPN's Monday Night Preseason Game as TJ, who's your mama? And as I listened to like Ocho Cinco stats and AJ Green stats, yeah, I'm a little less confident about TJ, but let's talk about him. 7th round pick out of Oregon State. Rookie season, 2001, 21 catches for 228 yards. When I looked at that, you know, because he didn't become a starter until 04, I was starting to think to myself, it might be TJ, why is he on here? But we end up getting a little bit better. In 04, he's a full-time starter. He played for Cincinnati from 01 to 08. Then he became a Seahawk in 09. Interesting fact about the Seahawks, they gave him like this $40 million deal. And I think in a lot of the outlets I saw, it's always ranked as one of the top 25 or top 20 worst contracts. But he had a quick stay in Baltimore and Oakland too. And I just think with Cincinnati, which was the bulk of his career, he could potentially have been maybe an effective running back, because before Oregon State, he actually went to like a junior college. It was called Cerritos College. And he was trying out running back there. And I think there was some concerns he was too tall, a little too tall for running back. But he had a good little career there. He had 1,152 receiving yards on 65 receptions. He had 2 103-yard kickoff returns, 92-yard punt return. In his only season with Oregon State, he caught 42 passes for 656 yards and 6 touchdowns. Helped the team defeat Notre Dame in the 2001 Fiesta Bowl. This guy did have a lot of athletic talent, and it might be a situation here where it's like another what could have been versus what was. But he starts to slim down in his time with the Bengals. In 04, he does rush a little bit more. He rushed for 51 yards, averaging about 8.5 yards per attempt. In 05, he rushes 8 times for 62 yards, 7.8 yards per attempt, and scored his first career touchdown in that time frame. Who's Your Mama ends up averaging 89 receptions, 1,012 yards, 8 touchdowns every year from 2004 to 2008. He ends up getting a Pro Bowl honors in 2007 when his 112 receptions led the NFL. So he had a few really good years with the Bengals and one really standout year, but his basic career totals or stats are 146 games, 627 receptions, 7,227 yards, 44 total touchdowns. He only averaged about 11.5 yards per reception. I can't remember off the top of my head, but that kind of puts him maybe in the Fitzgerald kind of average. But Fitzgerald, much longer career, much better career. But what may be an average NFL could be stellar for the Bengals. You know, perhaps underutilized with them. He could have been both maybe a running and receiving threat. But nonetheless, I think a really nice, respectable NFL career. Got that one high-dollar contract, so they thought, you know, something of him. But I'm wondering if maybe Ken's got any stories about him or what Ken thinks about him.
Um, I think he was a good complementary receiver to Chad. Like you said, he had some nice years there. But I would, as far as top five, I have to go back, to Isaac Curtis. That's who I would definitely put one of the top receivers that ever played the game. Actually, should be considered for the Hall of Fame too. He was a sprinter out of San Diego State, and like I said, he was definitely a game changer too with his speed. But to answer your question, yeah, he was definitely a good complimentary receiver. Had some nice years for the Bengals.
Ken, let me ask you this. He mentioned TJ was a 7th-round pick. Your father was 6th-round pick. Do you feel that maybe guys who are drafted later on in the draft like that have to prove themselves more to get into that starting lineup?
Oh, of course. That's definitely coming in the later rounds. You're definitely sometimes, you have to earn that spot. Sometimes as a first rounder, money's involved, and they come with a longer leash versus a 6th or 7th rounder. Like Tom Brady's, you come in with that chip, and you have to prove and earn everything you get. So I definitely think that holds some weight to it.
One thing to throw out real quick about Houshmanzada is that, it didn't always show up on the stat sheets, but he made a lot of tough catches over the middle. He was a heck of a receiver in the slot. I could think of a lot of times where they needed, it was a 3rd and 7 or a 3rd and 9 or something, and he made that key catch that they needed to keep the drive going.
I thought about that, Brian. That could be as low, average yards, because a lot of his were over the middle. And that's kind of unfair when you see it on paper. But you're right.
Right. Yeah. He wasn't really known as a deep threat. It was more of a possession receiver.
Yeah, that complimentary. Yeah, I think like you said, he did make some clutch plays and running across the middle. So you need that as well. So.
All right, let's move on to the defensive side of the ball. Go ahead, Rollo. I'm sorry.
I was just say there was another guy that killed the Steelers.
You're right. Yeah.
I remember that. He had, and I'll never forget when he wiped his cleats with a terrible towel. Disrespectful but funny.
All right, let's go on to defense. We're going to start. We got 2 defenders to talk about. We're going to start with Geno Atkins.
All right, Geno Atkins. This guy was a ferocious defensive tackle at Georgia from 2006 to 2009. He averaged 11 tackles for loss per season in his last 3 seasons. So he went in the 4th round to the Bengals in 2010, and he ended up playing 11 seasons with them. He was selected to the Pro Bowl in 8 of those seasons. So only 3 seasons he didn't. Really the reasons why the first season, or the first one he didn't make it, was his rookie season, because he hadn't really gotten to this, the starting lineup established. Another one was 2013 when he got injured and missed 8 games, and then another one was just this past season where he got hurt too. So when he played all 16 games, he made the Pro Bowl, and there's not a whole lot of players that can say that. He's got the 2nd most Pro Bowl selections in Bengals history. After Munoz. He was also selected to the All-Pro team 4 times, and he was chosen for the NFL 2010's All-Decade team. So he's 2nd in franchise history in quarterback sacks with 75.5. He's 2nd in tackles for loss with 100, and he's 2nd in QB hits with 172. In 2012, Atkins, he got the highest grade of any defensive lineman from PFF. They thought that he was the best defensive lineman in the league for that season. In 2017, he was voted as the 68th best player on the NFL top 10 countdown, and he was 63rd in 2018. Atkins, when you look at him, you sort of describe him, he was just a great pass rusher, but he also was excellent in run support as well. He was 6'1", 300 pounds, and he was able to get underneath linemen and get that leverage. He was very athletic. He was very quick. He was very powerful, and sometimes it was a little deceptive. But he was able to outsmart offensive linemen a lot as well. It really made him a nightmare to block, and he proved to be very versatile. In 2019, he changed to his position to defensive end, and he was still able to make the Pro Bowl as a defensive end. So not a lot of guys can say that they made it as a defensive tackle and as a defensive end in their career. So just a very, very versatile, very great Bengal on the defensive side of the ball.
Ken, he's probably their greatest defensive lineman of all time. I mean, what are your thoughts on Mr. Atkins?
Definitely think that he's one of the top defensive players to come out of Cincinnati. Little known history fact that his father, Gene Atkins, actually played for his senior year, played for my father at Florida A&M. And then he went on to play for the Saints and the Miami Dolphins. But I think that Geno actually opened the door for Aaron Donald. They're the same. He came in and had success, so it gave those little, the shorter but strong type linemen that opportunity. But definitely had a great career in Cincinnati and was a beast for a long time.
Rollo, again, you're our Steelers guru. So what are your thoughts on Atkins? He got to the quarterback quite often in his career.
He didn't fare so well against the Steelers as some of the other divisional opponents. So, like, he had 10.5 versus Baltimore. He had 8.5 versus Cleveland, but he only had 7 versus the Steelers in 19 career games. So, but he was a beast to watch. I mean, he, like Brian said, he would get underneath the defender and bull rush. At 6'1", 300. He was strong. He was quick. He was athletic. We very rarely see players that size dominate the game the way that he did and the way that Aaron Donald is doing now.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to our final player tonight, and that's going to be Ken Riley. That's his picture. Oh, there we go. Right behind him. So 15 years he spent as a Bengal. That was his entire career. He's a 3-time Pro Bowler, first team All-Pro in 1983. He retired with 65 interceptions, which at that time was 4th all-time. It's now 5th. So I don't remember who passed him, but he's still up there in the top 5. And he also had 3 interceptions in the playoffs. But what many people don't realize is he also recovered 18 fumbles. So that is 86 turnovers in his career. He brought the ball back to his team 86 times. That's a really, really good stat. And some people don't realize that at Florida A&M, he was a QB. He wasn't a corner. So it wasn't until he came to the NFL that they moved him to corner out there in his rookie year. And once he did start, never looked back. He's also a kick returner for the Bengals. So he did a little bit of both sides of the ball there. A really great stat that I got here. It's called approximate value. And basically that's a stat of a player's value to his team. And they have done every player since 1960 on. So Ken Riley is ranked 82nd of every player from 1960 as valued to his team. So that is an incredible stat when you think of how many players have gone through the NFL. And at 82, that puts him right above Brian Urlacher, Barry Sanders, Tony Gonzalez, and many more Hall of Famers. So he's not in the Hall of Fame. He should be. 100% should be. And I got a really good quote here from him. I'm going to end on this with this quote, and then we'll let Ken talk about his dad here for a little bit. But he said, "I think my numbers are deserving of the Hall of Fame. I've always been modest and a low-key type of guy. I've always thought your work would speak for you. It's like it's working against me now because the older you get, the longer you stay out of it, people forget who you are." So it's just a really good and accurate quote and how he felt about not getting into the Hall there. So, Ken, tell us about your father. I mean, I think he's a Pro Bowler all the way. I'm hoping maybe the alumni people will get him in at some point. But tell us about your dad.
Well, that was an interesting stat about the 82. I never heard that one. And also, he never made Pro Bowl. That was the big mystery as well. that's another like sore spot that I think that was like just crazy, unbelievable. But like you
Well, was
said,
it
he was
wasn't it the AFL Pro Bowls that he was in or something
no,
like that?
No, he was an
no.
all pro 3 times, but never a
All
pro.
pro,
All Pro
yeah.
3 times. Right. Okay.
Never Pro Bowl. I mean, it was like I said, that's ridiculous as well. But that was another thing that was out of his control. But like you said, number 5 all time that ever played the game at the time of his retirement, he was number 4. Then Rod Woodson passed him, and he's tied now with Charles Woodson, but he's number 2 as far as true corners because most of those guys either eventually once they got older transitioned to safety like Rod Woodson's and the Charles Woodson's, but he played on that corner for 15 years. So number 2 all time as far as a true corner, and just never played defense ever, until he got to the professional league. So it's the transition from a quarterback being pampered in college to make that transition to a cornerback and to start all 15 years in the last 2 years lead the conference in interceptions. So he was continuing to get better, and it's just remarkable to have 65 interceptions. I have a picture with Kenny Houston, who's in the Hall of Fame, Paul Krause, and my father. And it was like the total interception was almost like 200 interception, which is crazy. Paul Krause had 81. You think about that, it's like it's mind-boggling. And I can never say enough. I can run off stats because when you think about too, the times he was playing wasn't a passing league. And I know there's an argument saying, oh, well, he played against Lamar Parrish, who's another great corner who should be in the Hall of Fame. But anyway you slice it, Deion Sanders, look at the corners played on the other side of him. Do they have the numbers? You have to still be in position to make those plays. And when he had the opportunity, he was a true ball hawk, true professional. Definitely, like I said, whenever you think about all time, 5th all time, should be in the Hall of Fame, should have been in the Hall of Fame. It's unfortunate that he's not alive to see it, but I think it's going to happen. The Bengal Houday Nation and the organization, Cincinnati Bengals, are doing a great job of actually, keeping his name out and supporting the efforts to get him into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So hopefully one day in the near future, we will get his name called and he'll get into the Hall, which he rightfully deserves.
Brian, let me ask you, how do you compare him to, let's say, another guy who played corner his entire career, who's in the Hall of Fame, like a Darryl Green?
Well, I mean, Green was a little bit faster, but one thing about Riley was he was very good at baiting the quarterback into making a mistake. I remember a particular game where they went against the Oakland Raiders, and we know, Jim Plunkett was a pretty darn good quarterback. For the Raiders, won a couple Super Bowls, and he baited Plunkett into 3 interceptions that game. And so that was the thing with him was he would be a little, he would gamble a little bit sometimes and give a guy a little extra cushion, but he knew what he was doing. He was very smart, and I think that probably goes back to his time as a quarterback.
Yeah, I think that helped. He was a student of the game. Like I said, he had been around. He'd been there for 15 years, and Dick LeBeau came as well, who's in the Hall of Fame. But I think he was just an all-around player, though. He was able to run support and then play the pass as well. So, like I said, not flashy, but he was consistent, and he was consistent and able to do it for a long time and just the constant professional. And like I said, anybody that knows, it's hard to get into the interception. I think he averaged like 4 or 5 a year. I mean, it's just crazy, like I said, to obtain those numbers.
Right. All right, let's move into our vote here tonight. Brian, let's start with you.
All right. Well, I might be accused of being kissing up to Ken Rowley here. I'm going to put Ken Rowley in right away. I'm not going to mess with this guy no more. We're going to put him in that top 5. I mean, like what Ken was saying, great against the pass and great against the run. I mean, I saw some highlights of this guy putting the smackdown on some running backs and some wide receivers. So yeah, he had a lot of parts to his game, not just a guy to, covering the passes.
Okay. Paul.
Yeah, I agree with Brian. I mean, the whole point is we got to get, the word out there. And Ken Riley, to me, symbolizes work ethic, technique. I'm a big technique guy, strong. So I got to put him in there. And I like your guy too, Mike Munoz. I think he's the best in his class.
Okay, so Munoz, Riley, Rollo.
Let me just start by saying it's a travesty. Ken Riley is not in the Hall of Fame. Give me Boomer.
Boomer.
Give me Boomer.
All right. I was going to take Boomer, so that's going to make me have to think for a second. Oh, man. Oh, gosh, nobody took Geno Atkins yet? Geno, man, heck yeah. I mean, we gotta represent on the defensive side of the ball here for sure. So that gives us 2 defenders in there. So, Ken, I mean, you got 3 wide receivers here to choose from. Which one are you taking?
Now I have to go wide receiver.
Hey, give the list of the guys remaining.
Yeah, so the 3 remaining are Chad Johnson, TJ Houshmanzada, and AJ Green. So you got the hard part of the night.
And Ken Anderson also too.
Oh, and Kenny Anderson. Yeah, I forgot Kenny Anderson. Yeah, that's right.
Well, I'm biased, like I said, from the 69 to 80 crew. So I got to go with Ken Anderson. I got to go with the bookend, number 13 and number 14. So I'm going to go with Ken Anderson. And
no, that's good. So that makes the Bengals top 5 tonight. Ken Riley, Anthony Munoz, Boomer Esiason, Geno Atkins, and Kenny Anderson in no particular order. And the wide receivers have been shut out. That's what you get for being divas. So we're all going to ask one question each tonight for Ken. Brian, your guest, you can ask first.
Okay. Okay. As far as you know, who was your father's best friends on the team, and who were his rivals? Throughout the league.
Best friends, I would say position players that he played with. But Reggie Williams was a linebacker. My father's actually the godfather to his sons. They were roommates on the road. Lamar Parrish, Lewis Breeden, the other cornerback during that time. Isaac Curtis. Those were the closest that I can probably say. And then what was the other question?
Any rivals that maybe he had throughout the league?
Well, they played the Steelers twice a year, so he would match up against Stallworth, and then I guess Lamar had Swan. So I would say Stallworth, because that was twice a year for a while. So,
Paul.
Ken, I got a quick 2-parter here. I've watched a lot of interviews with you, and you'd referenced in 1 or 2 of them that your dad actually didn't really want you playing football until you were in the 9th grade. I wondered if you kind of agreed with that in retrospect, and if you would have gotten an earlier start, if you think you might have gone further with it. And then along that football career question path, your dad spent a lot of time going over technique with you when you got into playing football. And you said that you still see a lot of players nowadays that didn't spend a lot of time on that technique. Can you give an example of like something you see players that are in the pro level doing wrong over and over again?
Good questions. Answer your first question. I totally never agreed with me not playing earlier. Always wanted to play. I'm still like, man, that bothers me to this day. Yeah. As far as me, I don't think it made a difference. I actually went to the combines in '95, but I had injuries my senior year. I had hamstring injury, and I think that overall pretty much kind of derailed my career because I went into the combines and ran a slow time. The second part of your question is that, yeah, I learned so much from them. And the biggest thing is they don't know how to attack the ball. They want to bat the ball down. He would always, get upset about, catch the ball, making sure that you get interceptions or turnovers. So, and then just little things now, instead of, just turning and running, just little things that it's kind of like he could just pick up immediately and say, hey, they're doing it wrong. And we'd be watching and we would call it back and forth. Hey, did you see that? Just instead of, catching up to the man and looking back at the quarterback, or they're false stepping. That's false stepping when your weight's not forward. It's just a lot of things that, even I can just pick up now and say that today they don't really teach that technique. So I was able to learn a lot from him. And he was a technician and a student of the game. So he could immediately, look at a player and say, hey, this is what you're doing wrong. So, yeah, good question, though.
Rollo?
We all know that he should be in the Hall of Fame. And when he did interviews, he said all the right things. But when he wasn't in front of the camera, he was just around you guys and the friends and family. How much did not being in the Hall of Fame bother him?
He would say, like I said, my dad, that's just my dad, even off camera, he would never really let on how much it bothered him. We would have those conversations. But the only time it really bothered him when, he would, people will call, they start the time of year when it's time for the Hall of Fame, and he'll get those calls like, why aren't you in? And then when he started thinking about it, he was like, yeah, I should be in. What else can I do? And it's unfortunate when you don't have any control over it. He's done all he can do. So it was just frustrating because it's basically in the hands of somebody else. And it's more of like, it's only, Bingo's been around for 50 plus years now, and they only have one player. So it was very frustrating. And this last time, actually, the Centennial class, we both really thought that this was going to be it because they allowed so many guys to come in at one time. And when that didn't happen, I could really tell that really hurt him that time. And but for the most part, like I said, he was like, I only can control what I can control. And he felt that he had done enough his numbers spoke for himself. So he was at peace with it all.
So let me ask you, growing up with a father who was a professional athlete, I'm sure there's kind of like two sides to it. Like sometimes maybe you feel shadowed, but other times like it's just a great, awesome thing because you're hanging around football stadiums and football players. So what was it like being the child of a professional athlete?
What's kind of weird, I know a lot of people probably say it though, is like you don't realize it because that's just your father. Like you hear a lot of athletes say when they come home, I'm just dad. So to me, he was just my father. But as I grew up and as I started to play, it really changed as far as me having more respect and admiration because, like I said, I went to the NFL combines. I actually went up to the few mini camps. And the pressure that those players are under because it's a job now. And actually, I just remember, us riding in the car while he's out running. And I saw all of the work that he put in. Like growing up, I used to see him running and doing all of that. And it didn't dawn on me that, dang, that was a lot of hard work. And he did it for 15 years. Like I said, he didn't fall off. He was probably could have played it a couple more years, but he was like, he always wanted to go out on top. And he did go out on top. So as I grew older, I just gained that much more respect for him because I realized myself, like, man, that guy put in a lot of work. He put in a lot of work, and he did it consistently for 15 years in the right way. And like I say, he was an even better man than, an athlete, never any off the field trouble. Went back to my alma mater, Florida A&M, was the coach, and then athletic director. And then once he left there, he went back to his hometown in Bartow, and he started the Ken Riley Foundation. He did a lot for the kids down there. So he was always willing to help and really wanted to see the youth do well, and my sister. So, I mean, just all around great guy. And I know I'm a little biased, but outside of him being my father, he was I mean, he was a great guy. So.
Well, thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate hearing some stories and your views on the Bengals. I want to thank everyone who's been watching. And I said this one time before when we had Richmond Webb on the show. If you get a vote for the Hall of Fame, Ken Raleigh is a Hall of Famer. Put him in the Hall of Fame. So I'll end on that.
Yeah, well, I'd like to thank you all for the time, and like I said, it's nice speaking with you guys, and I appreciate you always the support, and keep doing what you're doing.
Sounds good. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks,
All
Ken.
right, thank you. All right, y'all take care.
You too.